on the cover sheet, it says to reflect changes made at the Hooksett School Board meeting on March 26, 2013.
Yeah.
And when I looked at the policy, I didn't see any change. So I don't know if I'm missing something, but it seemed to me to read the same way that it read before. At least the one that I have in my packet that came with that cover letter.
1 second, please. Yes, we had a very difficult time with this policy because it was voted on at a board meeting, and it was about 40 minutes of conversation where there was a motion at the beginning, and then at the end the motion changed, but it was never clear where the change was going, which is one of the reasons it's come back. It was not clear where the addition we wanted was supposed to go and what it was supposed to say. It was very unclear, and 3 of us watched the video separately. Yes, Mr. Liscars, I'm going to the original policy.
Madam Chair, I think this might be to Mr. Pearl's point. Whenever I've reviewed changes in documents, like in the business world, there's always some type of an edit mark, whether it's an underline, a cross out, to show you which words were changed, and anything basically that isn't underlined or crossed out, has remained the same. And I don't know if that's the same thing you're talking about, Mr. Pearl, but I had the same thought when I got this, because you basically have to take this, and then you have to go search and find the original, and then you'd have to look at them side by side. So I would think for our ease, it would be good if whatever the corrections were made, if those were there in front of us, so we don't have to search through the document. Does that make sense?
Well, unfortunately, the changing in this policy did not follow the normal format of how we change a policy. This was changed at a board level and sent to the administrative assistant who handles policies, and it was not clear from our minutes where in the policy we wanted the change, what exactly line, that you take this line out and you put that line in, and it is I'm not really good at it, it's like a 20-minute conversation of this board, and it's not clear where. I mean, if you can review the minutes and you can come up with better clarity than 3 people, please, your help would be appreciated. Yes, Mr. Pearl.
Well, Madam Chair, I guess I have 2 issues. One, it says that this is to reflect the changes, but there are no changes unless I'm missing something. To Mr. Liscar's comment about strikeouts, I think that'd be a good method, but I read these 2 and the old one looks like the new one, so I don't think there's any changes. And as I remember that just from memory, the final motion was made by Mr. Dubis, and I think it said all official communication for information, or something. There was a couple words put right in after that word communication, that there is no change, anywhere. I don't see any in that whole paragraph, let alone by communication. So I don't see how we can say this reflects the changes. There was a motion made, and it passed. Maybe we should look for those minutes. I'm trying to, I might have them here.
I have the minutes here. It is in fact that the policy in our packet may be the original policy, because Kathy is not sure where you would like to place the change that we have voted on. It says communication with staff requested by David Pearl. Then David Pearl withdraws the motion, then we change it again, but it doesn't clearly say where you'd like the change to be. I have what the change is.
Could you read the motion that passed, the Mike Dubus
Okay.
motion?
Mike Dubus motion to change BAC to no official communication as a school board member, informational communication only, seconded by David Pearl. We don't know where to put that, based on what was here. Yes, Mr. Pearl.
I guess I'd like to get a little clarification of how the policy works. I thought that what happened was either a policy came down from the state or administration, the policy board considered it and brought here for approval, or if we vote to do something that requires a policy, doesn't that also go to the policy committee to interpret our vote?
Yes, and the interpretation of the policy committee is, we do not know where you want to put it. Where you want, we have a motion from the board, but based on the communication that's in our minutes, and from reviewing the tape, the school district's video of the 21-minute, almost 21-minute discussion, we're not sure where you want to change, where you want it to be, no official communication as a school board member.
Well, isn't it the policies committee's job to try to work that language in with consideration of the laws and policies and so forth, and then bring it to us to see if we approve of that?
No, because this board made the vote to change the policy. So the board needs to tell us where, from the where you want the policy,
Well,
where you want the change.
May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
If we voted tonight on some restrictive policy here in school, kids can't wear coats to school or something. Now, wouldn't that have to go to the policy committee to be written into a policy and then come back to us? Because Dr. Littlefield and the administrators need to operate the school based on our policies, not our minutes, right? So when we vote to do something here, we have to create a policy for the long term so that it becomes part of how we operate the school. So when the board voted here to put that language in, I was assuming that the policy committee would, I didn't think it'd be verbatim, but work that idea in, come back here, and we would discuss that new language. And then if we approve that policy, that becomes the standing policy.
Actually, the policy committee would like clarification from the Hooksett School Board where they would like the change, no official communication as a school board member, informational communication only, to come from this board, because this change in policy is against the New Hampshire School Board Association's recommendation. It also could put this district in problems with unions and us contacting teachers directly. So it is the policy committee's feeling that we need to come back to you and ask what the intent was, because from the minutes and the video, we cannot glean that, and 3 people have watched separately. Yes,
Madam Chair, that's not what it says on this table.
I
The table
understand
says
that.
that under reasons for change or substance of change, it says to reflect the changes made by the Hooksett School Board on the 26th. This does not, so I think we need to add that as an agenda item, bring the minutes in, and try to give the policy committee that clarification. Thank you. And could we ask to table this and have it made as an agenda item with the copies of the minutes provided and any other information?
Absolutely, and I would recommend to all board members that on the video of the November 26th meeting, that you watch the video from our 2 hours, 36 minutes, 4 seconds to 2 hours, 55 minutes and 34 seconds. It's a very confusing 20-minute conversation, and I did bring that all to your attention last time to help with the clarification on this. But we will have this come back next meeting for a first reading.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I mean, I want to apologize. I think I misunderstood because I do know you put the minutes on there, that, where it came from and everything, but I was just assuming that that work was already done and input in here. So I didn't really go and watch the whole thing, because I just assumed that the policy committee already did that work,
Okay.
and all we were going to do is review. But
Well, we need to be very careful with this policy, because we are violating the recommendations of the New Hampshire School Board Association by doing this. So the policy committee is very concerned about that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I do believe, and I may be mistaken, but I do remember you bringing that point up the night where we deliberated, and we had that discussion. But then the will of the board was the specific language
And
that
as
we
the-
voted on.
And as
Correct.
the representative of the policy committee, I need to remind people of that, that that is what it is.
And could you repeat that just for my notes? We're violating what with these changes?
That with the changes that we voted in on March 26th, I'm sorry, that we are going against the recommendation of what the New Hampshire School Board Association says this policy should look like.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
My understanding, when I went to the School Board Association, orientation, they provide template policies for school districts such as ours. But in most cases, in no way do they dictate that you have to take that policy, that template, verbatim. Now, I could be wrong, because I'm new at this, but that was
So am
my
I.
understanding. So do you have a different understanding? In other words, if they provide us a template to follow, are you saying that we have to follow it to the word?
Not every policy do we follow word for word, but this particular policy allowing school board members to talk to teachers, it could get us into trouble with our unions.
Okay, so just from my information, what specifically are you referring to that if we make this change, we would be violating at the state level, or what specifically are we going to violate in your opinion?
We have, I'm trying to think of the right wording. The recommended way for school boards to get their information from teachers, staff, or administration is through the superintendent. By us going directly to employees of the district, we are engaging in administrative function, and we are not an we do not administer the Hooksett School District. We are a policy-setting board. The superintendent is responsible for the administration of our school district. That is my interpretation.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr.
everything you just said, I agree with, and I think we discussed that night. I don't think we're talking about administering anybody. We all agreed that's Superintendent Littlefield's job, and nobody wants to take that away. So I think we discussed all this that night. I can remember deliberating about it. I'm just trying to make sure that, if we're going to go back and do the work now and review these minutes and potentially suggest some language, I would like to know.
But we have the language suggested. We don't have where you want the language. It's not in the motion. It wasn't a clean discussion. It wasn't two clean motions. It just wasn't. So the policy committee asked me to come back and ask the board, what was your intent? Where do you want this so that it correctly reflects the will of this board?
Okay. So again, I'll just say the only thing, as a board member, a single board member, I want to make sure once I do this review, once I make my recommendations, if there's something specific you already know about that we have to be careful about with the language, I would like to have that in front of me to make sure that the language I recommend doesn't violate something you're already aware of.
Without another motion, we can't change the language. We're asking, our question is specifically on the placement of the motion that we've already made.
I understand that, but what you've suggested to this board tonight is with the language we've already voted on to accept at this board. You are concerned we're about to violate something. I can't understand yet what that something specifically is. That's what I'm trying to find out. Is there an RSA? Is there another policy at the state level that you're aware of? And that's what I'm trying to find out. So I have that sitting in front of me when I come back and we deliberate the next time to suggest where it goes.
Can you hold on a second while I go and look in the
Sure.
binder?
Yeah.
I apologize, I do not have my notes from my policy committee meeting with me, but I would be more than happy to forward that information to you via email. I apologize, I just don't have it with me.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that Chair Corcus is allowed to email the board the details of what potential policy or RSA we may be violating by inserting this language.
Second.
I just want to make sure that that's okay and you can do that. So yeah, that's fine.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 4-0.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to go on the record that there's an omission here, because as I read this report, it says to reflect the changes made by the Hooksett School Board meeting, and this policy does not. I think this definition should have been what you just told us, seeking more information. As we're reading down through these, they're supposed to explain what we're seeing, and this one certainly did not. So I would ask the policy committee to look at that.
Okay, when it comes back to you, it will reflect the change.